So Rivian just recently announced these limited edition California Dune versions of the Rivian R1T and R1S, and I'll keep my initial impressions brief, but they look awesome. Like, I love this little tan texture they built into the paint that looks sick, the new tires that match it, they're beautiful, but more importantly than all of the exterior changes is the interior. Normally, I've been a huge Ocean Coast fan from the beginning. I always love lighter toned interiors. I just get sick of so many cars these days having just pitch black interiors. It gets old after a while, but something about the dual tone Dune interior that they came up with is just gorgeous to me. I absolutely love it, and I love that they made the vehicle easier to clean and more welcoming of the outside world coming in with dirt and sand, updating the interior materials and all that kind of thing. It's just a fantastic job they did, but I wanted to defend their decision a little bit because, yeah, I guess I saw a lot of people complain that Rivian was overhyping this announcement. You know, they send out photos and kind of were teasing this sand dune emphasis, paint color and vehicle options like a week in advance, and I guess the community let that kind of build up in their heads a bit. Everybody started thinking, oh, this is gonna be a whole new model, or this is gonna be a way cheaper Rivian or something, and I guess a bunch of people were disappointed that the versions essentially ended up costing between like $100,000 and $105,000. And you know, I get it. It's a lot of money, and to a certain extent, yes, I understand why people are like, we don't need more six-figure vehicles. We're sick of that. We've seen so many new electric vehicles come out, sedans, SUVs, and trucks that all cost $90,000 to $100,000, and maybe that's what people are just getting sick of after the Cybertruck and after Lucid Gravity, and of course, after the Trimax and Quad Max have been announced. People maybe just got bummed that Rivian is offering yet more six-figure vehicle options, but the reason I wanted to defend them a little bit, and maybe I'm biased because I really love that new interior choice, is that Rivian, and I think they probably regret this to a certain extent, has already built out a factory line, an assembly line, and a supply chain all dedicated to these R1 products, right? The R1T and R1S. Slightly different wheelbases, but for the most part, very similar vehicles. One's a truck, one's a 7-seater SUV, and they've done their very, very best with the Generation 2 versions of these vehicles to cut out the cost, make them more efficient. They took out a bunch of wiring, and they've included a lot more advanced driver assist functionalities, and they've improved the frame rate and the camera resolution and all that. So they've worked really, really hard on making these vehicles high quality and highly sought after by people who are willing to pay a premium for them. But it goes without saying that I think Rivian is struggling with demand a little bit, and it's really at an unfortunate time that, you know, the interest rates are still really high, and most people are financing vehicles, especially at this price point. And also, through all of these changes with the Gen 2 Rivians, they're coming really, really close to breaking even, and essentially, I think what they've tried to do is something similar to what Tesla did. They saved up a lot of the Cyber Beast deliveries for Q3 so that they could report that the Cybertruck had become profitable, and I think Rivian is trying to do a similar thing where they save up a lot of the Trimax and Quad Max deliveries for a couple of quarters so that they can recognize a lot more profits in a shorter amount of time, and then people could probably start to see the light at the end of the tunnel that is ramping up Rivian production and actually start to say, oh, okay, profitability with this company is possible, even if it's somewhat short term and maybe it doesn't stay profitable for that long. But I think it's abundantly clear that Rivian is not going to become a profitable business just by selling cheaper and cheaper versions of the R1, okay? It's just the battery packs are too big, the interiors are too premium, and the suspension systems are too advanced for this to be a profitable vehicle at $70,000 or $60,000. They're probably losing a lot less money on every truck and SUV than they used to, but they're still losing quite a bit. So what Rivian is trying to do essentially is continue to dominate and expand in that six-figure price segment market, and they've got an assembly line, they've got a supply chain all optimized for these crazy high-range, high-performance R1 versions. So now they reach a point where they're like, okay, we can't find enough people that are willing to pay this price for them. What do you do exactly? Do you just give up? Do you just shut down all of these multi-year contracts you've made with your existing suppliers? Do you scrap the entire assembly line and make an announcement to your shareholders? Well, we just weren't making enough money on the R1T or the R1S, so we're just gonna stop making it now. No, that's not a good look either. So I think honestly, while it's not directed towards me, because I'm definitely not dropping $100 100 grand on a Rivian, it's probably still, though, the best option they have is to start doing a little bit more limited edition runs that feel a little bit more custom. They orient the product a little bit more towards the audiences that are more likely to care. So people who like going off-road, people who like going in the dunes, they're like, okay, what do we do good here at Rivian? We make really awesome interior designs, and people love our paint color choices, people love our tire options, and they love all of the accessories that are compatible with our product. So let's just make one limited edition custom badged version of these vehicles that lean into the advantages, so you don't have to customize it exactly the way you want, and you just say, look, here's the California Dune version of these Rivian products, and here's what they cost. No, they're not cheap, but if you're the kind of person that can drop that kind of money on a Rivian, and you care about that adventure aspect, and you care about that off-roading stuff, I don't think a lot of people do. I know I don't, but if they're out there, you want to make sure that people with that kind of money are definitely buying a Rivian, and they're not buying anything else. They can't afford to lose those customers that have that much money to Tesla or to Mercedes or to Ford or to Jeep or whoever is selling other off-road vehicles. You're like, no, if you've got that kind of money, you want the best overall product you can possibly get, and if that's their angle, I agree. This is probably the best way to go about it. How can you secure better margins on your product, which means convincing a higher percentage of people to drop six figures on it, and make use of your existing supply chain and your existing assembly line? Personally, I think it would be manufacturing suicide of Rivian to just scrap the R1T and R1S. They've already sunk way too much money into the factory as is, and also, we've learned this from following other startups like Aptera, and from my conversations with guys at the Tello Trucks company. You have a lot more leverage with your suppliers when you're ordering things in bulk. So it wouldn't be good for even the R2 to get more affordable if Rivian just decided we're just gonna make delivery vans and that's it. No, you want all of those cameras, all of those NVIDIA GPUs, and all of those windshields and tire options, wheel options, powertrain designs, wiring components. You want all of that stuff continuing to come in through the company, even if the vehicles themselves are not that profitable, because you have a lot more buying power when you're buying at scale. When you're buying things at the highest volume you possibly can, then suppliers are more likely to prioritize you, and they're more likely to give you a discount because they see you as a big potential customer. So while a lot of people complain that, oh, these California Dune editions, they're not moving the needle on electrification, they're too expensive, why doesn't Rivian focus on making cheaper vehicles for the masses? To the people who keep asking for that, let me just remind you, they are working very, very hard on the entire assembly line for the R2 vehicle, and they will not mention anything about R3 because their R2 right now is in focus. That's what needs to launch next year in the first half of 2026, and frankly, I think keeping their supply chain moving and keeping their buying power strong is going to be really, really important for Rivian to hit the margins they need to with the R2, and that's why I've been trying to warn people for a while. There's a good chance R2 is probably going to start out pretty expensive. It's not going to just suddenly come online one day. Oh, by the way, you can get a Rivian for 45 grand. No, they will eventually get to that price point, but it might take a year, maybe even two. I think there's a good chance it'll start out as like a $70,000 tri-motor variant, which has good range, and because it's small and somewhat efficient and technically cheaper than standard range R1Ss that aren't as fast, a lot of people will still buy the R2X or whatever you want to call it. And then after a few months of delivering the tri-motor R2, then they'll start offering the dual motor option. Maybe that one's closer to 60 or 50 grand. Then maybe they can secure some better margins, offer some lower range, cheaper battery pack variants, and then maybe a year goes by and we'll get some rear-wheel drive R2s with standard range batteries and maybe missing some premium features on the interior. Those might start to hit their original promise of around 45 grand. That's just the most practical way to ramp up these things, and I think Rivian is making the right call. I mean, hindsight is 2020. Yes, they probably wouldn't have spec'd out the R1 to be as expensive as it is to manufacture had they have known that the interest rates were going to be so bad and that the demand wasn't going to be as strong for them, but it's too late now. You can't pivot that fast. But we're hoping to learn from that at Tello, and that's why we're trying to focus on a much more affordable vehicle from the beginning, because we think the demand is going to be a lot higher for that. But what do you guys think? Is Rivian wrong to try to make these limited edition models, or do you think they're on the right track with their supplier buying power? Feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. again, have an excellent rest of your day.